Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in this world. God bless you. This is Gloria White coming to you from Utah, USA. Today we're going to be continuing in the book of Jasher, and we are in chapter 65. And we have one more chapter before we conclude the book of Jasher. And it came to pass after these things that all the counselors of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all the elders of Egypt assembled and came before the king and bowed to the ground, and they sat before him. And the counselors and the elders of Egypt spoke unto the king, saying, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are greater and mightier than we are. And you know all the evil which they did to us in the road when we returned from battle. And you have seen their strong power. For this power is unto them from their fathers. For but a few men stood up against a people numerous as the sand, and smote them at the edge of the sword. And of themselves not one has fallen. So that if they had been numerous, they would have then suddenly, utterly destroyed them. Now, therefore, give us counsel what to do with them, until we gradually destroy them from among us, lest they become too numerous for the land and for us. For if the children of Israel should increase in the land, they will become an obstacle to us. And if any war should happen to take place, they with their great strength will join our enemy against us, and fight against us, destroy us from the land, and go away from it. So the king answered the elders of Egypt and said unto them, This is the plan advised against Israel, from which we will not depart. Behold, the land of the Python and Ramesses, cities fortified against battle. It behooves you and us to build them, and to fortify them. Now, therefore, go you also and act cunningly toward them, and proclaim a voice in Egypt and in Goshen, at the command of the king, saying, All you men of Egypt, Goshen, Pathros, and all their inhabitants, the king has commanded us to build Python and Ramesses, and to fortify them for battle. Who among you of all Egypt, of the children of Israel, and all the inhabitants of the city, are willing to build with us? Will each have his wages given to him daily at the king's order. So go you first and do cunningly, and gather yourselves and come to Python and Ramesses to build. And while you are building, cause a proclamation of this kind to be made throughout Egypt every day at the command of the king. And when some of the children of Israel will come to build with you, you will give them their wages daily for a few days. And after that they will have built with you for their daily hire. Drag yourselves away from them daily, one by one, in secret, and then you will rise up and become their taskmasters and officers, and you will leave them afterward to build without wages. And should they refuse, then force them with all your might to build. And if you do this, it will be well with us to strengthen our land against the children of Israel. For on account of the fatigue of the building and the work, the children of Israel will decrease, because you will deprive them from their wives day by day. And all the elders of Egypt heard the counsel of the king, and the counsel seemed good in their eyes, and in the eyes of the servants of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all Egypt. And they did according to the word of the king. And all the servants went away from the king, and they caused a proclamation to be made in all Egypt, and Tachpanches, and in Goshen, and in all the cities which surrounded Egypt, saying, You have seen what the children of Esau and Ishmael did to us, who came to war against us and wished to destroy us. Now, therefore, the king commanded us to fortify the land, to build the cities Python and Ramesses, and to fortify them for battle, if they should again come against us. Whosoever of you from all Egypt and from the children of Israel will come to build with us, he will have his daily wage given by the king, as his command is unto us. And when Egypt and all the children of Israel heard all that the servants of Pharaoh had spoken. There came from the Egyptians and the children of Israel to build with the servants of Pharaoh, Pithon and Ramesses. But none of the children of Levi came with their brethren to build. And all the servants of Pharaoh and his princes came at first, with deceit to build with all Israel, as daily hired laborers. And they gave to Israel their daily hire at the beginning. And the servants of Pharaoh built with all Israel, and were employed in that work with Israel for a month. And at the end of the month, all the servants of Pharaoh began to withdraw secretly from the people of Israel daily. And Israel went on with the work at that time. But they then received their daily hire, because some of the men of Egypt were yet carrying on the work with Israel at that time. Therefore the Egyptians gave Israel their hire in those days, in order that they, the Egyptians, their fellow workmen, might also take the pay for their labor. And at the end of a year and 4 months, all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Israel, so that the children of Israel were left alone engaged in the work. And after all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Israel, they returned and became oppressors and officers over them. And some of them stood over the children of Israel as taskmasters, to receive from them all that they gave them for the pay of their labor. And the Egyptians did this in manner to the children of Israel day by day, in order to afflict in their work. And all the children of Israel were alone engaged in the labor, and the Egyptians refrained from giving any pay to the children of Israel from that time forward. And when some of the men of Israel refused to work on account of the wages not being given to them, then the exactors and the servants of Pharaoh oppressed them and smote them with heavy blows, and made them return by force to labor with their brethren. Thus did all the Egyptians unto the children of Israel all the days. And all the children of Israel were greatly afraid of the Egyptians in this matter. And all the children of Israel returned and worked alone without pay. And the children of Israel built Pithon and Ramesses, and all the children of Israel did the work, some making bricks and some building. And the children of Israel built and fortified all the land of Egypt and its walls. And the children of Israel were engaged in work for many years, until the time came when the Lord remembered them and brought them out of Egypt. But the children of Levi were not employed in the work with their brethren of Israel, from the beginning unto the day of their going out from Egypt. For all the children of Levi knew that the Egyptians had spoken all these words with deceit to the Israelites. Therefore the children of Levi refrained from approaching to the work with their brethren. And the Egyptians did not direct their attention to make the children of Levi work afterward, since they had not been with their brethren at the beginning. Therefore the Egyptians left them alone. And the hands of the men of Egypt were directed with continued severity against the children of Israel in that work. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel work with vigor. And the Egyptians embittered the lives of the children of Israel with hard work, in mortar and bricks, and also in all manner of work in the field. And the children of Israel called Milol, the king of Egypt, Meror, king of Egypt, because in his days the Egyptians had embittered their lives with all manner of work, and all the work wherein the Egyptians made the children of Israel labor, they exacted with rigor, in order to afflict the children of Israel. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew. And the Egyptians were grieved because of the children of Israel. At that time died Hadad, the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and Shalem from Mezrikah, from the country of the children of the east, reigned in his place. In the 13th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, which was the 125th year of the Israelites going down into Egypt, Samliah had reigned over Edom 18 years. And he drew out his host to go and fight against Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and the children of Chittim, because they had made war against Ageas, king of Africa, and they destroyed his whole army. But he did not engage with him, for the children of Esau prevented him, saying he was their brother. So Samaliah listened to the voice of the children of Esau and turned back with all his forces to the land of Edom, and did not proceed to fight against Zepho the son of Eliphaz. And Pharaoh king of Egypt heard this thing, saying, Samaliah king of Edom has resolved to fight the children of Chittim, and afterward he will come to fight against Egypt. And when the Egyptians heard this matter, they increased the labor upon the children of Israel, lest the Israelites should do unto them as they did unto them in their war with the children of Esau in the days of Hadad. So the Egyptians said unto the children of Israel, Hasten and do your work, and finish your task, and strengthen the land, lest the children of Esau your brethren should come to fight against us. For on your account they will come against us. And the children of Israel did the work of the men of Egypt day by day, and the Egyptians afflicted the children of Israel in order to lessen them in the land. But as the Egyptians increased the labor upon the children of Israel, so did the children of Israel increase and multiply. And all Egypt was filled with the children of Israel. And in the 125th year of Israel's going down into Egypt, all the Egyptians saw their counsel did not succeed against Israel, but that they increased and grew. And the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen were filled with the children of Israel. So all the elders of Egypt and its wise men came before the king, and bowed down to him and sat before him. And all the elders of Egypt and the wise men thereof said unto the king, May the king live forever. You did counsel us the counsel against the children of Israel, and we did unto them according to the word of the king. But in proportion to the increase of the labor, so do they increase and grow in the land, and behold, and become the whole country is filled with them. Now, therefore, our Lord and King, the eyes of all Egypt are upon you to give them advice with your wisdom, by which they may prevail over Israel to destroy them, or to diminish them from the land. And the king answered them, saying, Give you counsel in this matter, that we may know what to do unto them. And an officer, one of the king's counselors, whose name was Job, from Mesopotamia, in the land of Uz, answered the king, saying, If it please the king, let him hear the counsel of his servant. And the king said unto him, Speak. And Job spoke before the king, the princes, and before all the elders of Egypt, saying, Behold, the counsel of the king which he advised formerly, respecting the labor of the children of Israel, is very good, and you must not remove from them that labor forever. But this is the advice counsel by which you may lessen them, if it seemed good to the king to afflict them. Behold, we have feared war for a long time, and we said, When Israel becomes fruitful in the land, they will derive us from the land if a war should take place. If it please the king, let the royal decree go out, and let it be written in the laws of Egypt, which will not be revoked, that every male child born to the Israelites, his blood will be spilled upon the ground. And by doing this, when all the male children of Israel will have died, the evil of their wars will cease. Let the king do so, and send for all the Hebrew midwives, and order them in this matter to execute it. So the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Job. And the king sent for the Hebrew midwives to be called, of which the name was Shiphrah, the name of the other Puah. And the midwives came before the king and stood in his presence. And the king said unto them, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then you will kill him, but if it be a daughter, then she will live. But if you will not do this thing, then will I burn you up in all your houses with fire. But the midwives feared God, and did not hearken to the king of Egypt, nor to his words. And when the Hebrew women brought out the midwife's son or daughter, then did the midwife do all that was necessary to the child and let it live. Thus did the midwives all the days. And this thing was told to the king. And he sent and called for the midwives, and he said to them, Why have you done this thing and saved the children alive? And the midwives answered and spoke together before the king, saying, Let not the king think that the Hebrew women are as the Egyptian women, for all the children of Israel are vigorous, and before the midwife comes to them, they are delivered. And as for us, your handmaids, for many days no Hebrew woman has brought out upon us, for all the Hebrew women are their own midwives, because they are vigorous. And Pharaoh heard their words and believed them in this matter. And the midwives went away from the king, and God dealt well with them. And the people multiplied and waxed exceedingly. So, I think I just read 64 and 65. Oh, no, 65 and 66. Okay, so now we're in chapter 67. I thought there were only 66 chapters in here. Wow, wait a minute. How many more are there? I don't know how I got that. Must have got that mixed up with Isaiah. Let's see. 91 chapters. So the story goes on and on. And as always, I love you.